Part of it is that reclassification of art to show that there's always been an inherent connection between Black folks and other communities of color and nature. My name is Leah Thomas. I'm an environmental creative, author, and event producer. I'm also a ceramicist, and I just do a lot of crafting at home. That's kind of a part of my environmental activism, to try to make things instead of buying them. So I'm on my little crafty journey. I think the first time I learned about Black Futurism or Afrofuturism, I saw a billboard that said there are Black people in the future. And I just thought that was so cool, and I had to investigate further. And there's a book that's called Black Futures, which is a compilation of art and history and just creativity that talks about the importance of envisioning a future in which there are Black folks. And not only are there Black folks, but there are Black folks that are thriving, breathing clean air, being creative and joyous. And I thought that was such a beautiful thing. And then, of course, when I saw Black Panther, the movie, and everybody said, this is in the style of Afrofuturism, I dove into that even more and realized that there's this beautiful genre and a collection of artwork and literature that's all about Afrofuturism and infusing various African countries and cultures with depictions of what the future could look like. And I thought, okay, what is that? That's so cool. And being African American, or like a stolen person on stolen land, is a really complicated existence. And a lot of Afrofuturism specifically connects to various cultures and countries throughout Africa, and kind of infusing that with this like futurism and imagining what the future could look like. Then me specifically as a Black American, thinking of like Black American futures. So a lot of my work centers around imagining better futures for Black folks and everybody. Looking back, there's so much depictions of us in enslavement. So there's so many movies that are about our struggle, usually not created by Black folks. So we have so many depictions of what Black folks in the past and our trauma looks like, but that's not our story. That's only a small part of our story. So on one hand, we also need more beautiful depictions of Black pasts as well, so people can understand and contextualize why Black futures will be so beautiful. But yeah, that's one of the reasons that Black Futurism or Afrofuturism is like a beautiful thought experiment, because we get to envision this world that's futuristic, that's joyous. So it's a really stark difference from the past that we've seen depicted in movies, etc. And we get to tell a different story that's not here yet, but through that thought experiment, it's like we're playing a role in creating that beautiful future. When I think of the past or the civil rights movement, it's like they knew, they were very futuristic, like MLK, Malcolm X, etc. They're like, this is not right. This is not what I want my future to look like. So in my opinion, they were Black futurists, because with their organizing, they're saying this is what the future could look like, one that is just for like all people and the planet. So I honestly would argue that any activist is a futurist, and Black futurists are, thinking about what Black communities and our futures could look like, but activism is inherently like futuristic in nature. When I wrote The Intersectional Environmentalist, I felt like I just had a lot to say, and I feel very, very lucky that I got to write a book. I think I was 25 at the time, which is just so wild. What the heck? Like, how did that happen? But I just had a lot to say, and when I was putting it together again, I was leaning to the past. So there's a rainbow on the front because of rainbow coalition building and the importance of people coming together, class consciousness and like other things like that. And I also made a graphic that had rainbow coloring, and I think my usage of vivid colors is also a throwback to the hippies and that movement, but then also the future, because I envision the future in my mind to be very vibrant and beautiful, and hopefully the world is repopulated with tons of beautiful flora and things like that. So yeah, in all of my artwork, I try to think about the future being this vibrant, inviting, warm, community-centered space. So whether it's in the book, the ceramics that I make, or the events I organize, like Earth Sessions and other music, climate events. I want people to know in the future there will be art, there will be music, and we can do this together. So I think it's good to have an example of what that world could look like, and I try to create that in my various pieces of artwork. One of the reasons why Earth Sessions was built, because there were so many musicians I was meeting in Los Angeles that were saying, I want to use my platform for good, but I don't know how. We did an event with Ravina, who is one of my favorite artists and just like the most ethereal person in the world. And she also said it was her favorite event of the year, but it was so cute. People just felt so held, and that was the first time that the majority of people who came were just Ravina fans. And then to walk away learning about queer ecology, environmental justice, and then have a stripped down performance from Ravina and a free environmental justice book, it was so cool to be like, whoa, we just gave 400 people their first experience with environmentalism. And it was one where they felt really like seen and heard and validated. And the feedback from that was just amazing. There's so many artists that are like, no, I want to advocate for people and planet at the same time in a genuine way that connects with my community. So that's why I specifically focus on alternative R&B artists, R&B and hip hop artists, because that's a genre of people that connects with the people who are most impacted by environmental injustices, and also create music, in my opinion, that make people feel held. I think the future is just like such a sacred space, because hopefully that's where my children and my grandchildren will be. So I feel like a lot of the work that I'm doing now is for that future. So I don't know exactly what that looks like. And I feel like it's something inherent. It's not always intentional. I took a test one time in high school and they give you like characteristics of who you are. And my first one was like futuristic. So I guess it's just always been like that. To me, the future is just like a sacred space that I really want to honor. So when I'm like making these events and I'm like envisioning what the future will look like, it feels good. Like there's something that feels good about it, especially because again, Hollywood, come on. It's like some weird situation where the air, you can't breathe the air, everything's on fire, everybody's in space. And I'm here to just be like, I'm not trying to go to Mars, okay? I'm trying to be right here. I'm trying to have arts and crafts and clean air and clean water. And I truly believe that we can create something as beautiful as that. So I think, yeah, I just try to infuse it through my work of just like, look, there's a lot of stuff that's going wrong, but we need to believe in a better tomorrow, because that's what activism is in the first place. So again, activism is inherently futuristic, because you're saying, I want tomorrow to be different. I want 5 years to be different. I want 1 year from now to be different. So in order to be an activist or an artivist, I think you have to be a futurist. So it's just there inherently through all the projects that I do. Camille, she's incredible. I had the privilege of speaking with her, and she wrote a book called Black Nature. And it's a poetry collection anthology over the last 100+ years of poetry from Black Americans. And something that's interesting is like the classification for Black folks and people of color. Like a lot of our poems are just considered like civil rights or Black people power, like whatever. So, but it's unfair. And Camille does this beautiful job of reclassifying and saying, no, Black folks have been talking about their experience with nature forever. So there's these poems of people, you know, looking to the stars for freedom, using those stars to escape to freedom, their connection with the land, etc. So I think part of it is that reclassification of art to show that there's always been an inherent connection between Black folks and other communities of color and nature. So that's a project through poetry that I admire and carry that in the work that I do. Crafting is my way to resist capitalism, and I just think it's funny too, like a lot of things I do, it's because it's like an inside joke. Like my book, I put the rainbow on there for the Rainbow Coalition, but also because I was like, yay gay. It's just like anybody who reads this book, I want it to be a signal that like the LGBT plus, you are safe here. So I think that's just funny. Also with the IE Agenda, which was like a magazine project, it's called the IE Agenda because I thought it was funny because people would always say like the gay agenda is a bad thing. So I have so much fun just playing, like there's humor throughout all of the work that I do, even our logo, like dismantle systems of oppression in the environmental movement. I just thought it was so funny to pair that with these like vivid rainbow colors. So I just have a lot of fun. So crafting, I love it. And it also is just funny because there's a rise in this conservative like trad wife experience. So I also wanted to show people I am a single, progressive, cat mom, but I also enjoy these things because I do think creating things with your own hands, again, is a way to resist like capitalism. It's also really empowering for me to make my own like plant-based milks, lip balm. I'm making recycled paper, like whatever I want to make, and one of those things is ceramics. And that's just been a really fun creative medium because I love jewelry, love cute things. So simple, and it's like a month-long process to make one necklace, and it's just been a very meditative experience. I'm doing a research project right now on just like Mother Earth figures from the past, and not just looking at Greek and Roman mythology, going all across Africa, looking at African American traditions, etc. And I think it's just so cool, like a nod to my ancestors, like, oh my God, they found peace in thinking that there was this beautiful woman earth figure that was looking after them. So if anything, I just get comfort from that, and it also feels really empowering. I have a really artsy grandmother, Jimenez. I have a very eccentric, artistic family that has taken me to protest since I was like 2 years old. So again, activism, it's just a way to be. It's not even, I don't even consider myself to be an activist really, but because I think it's just inherent to my family that you're supposed to speak up for different things. My dad, I remember my sister wanted more recess time or something like that, I forget, in elementary school, and she wrote a petition and she got in trouble, and my dad came up to the school and was like, my daughters have the right to protest, and like really shook things up. So I think that was always just how my family was. Like, we're supposed to resist, we're supposed to speak up, and that's really inherent to, I think, African American culture. In particular, I feel really connected with Black women in this country, because I feel like Black women have my back, and I think that is something that will carry my work forward. I think if we even look at this most recent election, Black women were like the most aligned demographic to say, nah, we don't want any of that. We don't want any part in that. And now we see what's happening. I feel like Black women have consistently had my back, and honestly everybody's back. So that is in my work as well. Self-sufficiency and like community sufficiency. Being able to do things again, make things, mend. Like, I want those things to be normal again, learning how to like mend and sew. And a lot of that is because of my distrust of, you know, the powers that be. So we really have to have us, like we need to have things FUBU, for us, by us. So I want to see that more in the future, like people learning how to grow their own food, mend, be sufficient in their own communities, support local, support grassroots organizations, because I think there is a like disillusionment right now with the federal government, other things being really uncertain. So us like really turning to each other and learning how to work together. So to see some like music people say, we're gonna teach you guys how to fly fish and plant-based dye and do all these things. So for that to even be cool, I think is very funny. This connection, this reconnection to nature is becoming like culturally relevant. So I'm seeing that happening little by little, of people wanting to know how to make their own things, especially because grocery prices are so expensive. Again, Black Futurism just kind of inherently ties into the things that I do. There's an article I wrote with a conversation with Rachel Cargill, who's someone that I really adore. And it begins by saying, you know, like, if we close our eyes, like if we think about the future, people will have clean air and clean water, and they'll be joyful. And like, some people might call it rose-colored goggles, but I just call it being a Black futurist. So I think it flows through all the pieces because I want to pause and exhale and meditate and think about what the future could look like before I do anything. So even the ceramics that I make are kind of psychedelic or fun or just very cute to help people connect with their inner child. I think is such a cool thing. So I'm definitely pulling from the past and present in all my work. Past and future. Past, I don't know. We can cut that.
Okay.